Ethan Carter tore the guardrail post out of the snow with his bare hands and swung it like a bat at the windshield of the black SUV rolling toward the woman lying in the ditch. Glass went everywhere. The SUV reversed and vanished with its headlights off. He never saw a plate. He never saw a face. He carried her 300 yards to his truck, and she whispered 5 words that changed everything. "They're going to kill me." By sunrise, 3 helicopters would drop out of that sky, and stepping out of one of them would be the man who destroyed Ethan Carter's life 10 years ago. Before we start, comment the city you're watching from, so I can see how far this story travels. Subscribe and stay till the end. You won't guess it. Ethan Carter had exactly $41 in his wallet, a truck with a heater that only worked at highway speed, and a daughter at home who had asked him that morning whether angels get cold. That was the kind of question Lily asked. 8 years old, and she went straight for the throat every time. He'd told her no. Angels don't get cold. She'd said, "Then Mom's okay." And he'd had to turn around and look inside the refrigerator for something he didn't need, so she couldn't see his face. That was 12 hours ago. Now it was almost 11 at night. The mountain road out of Cold Spring was slick as a skating rink, and Ethan's phone was buzzing on the seat beside him. He answered on speaker. "Ruth." "She's still up," said Ruth Nolan. 72 years old, lived a quarter mile down the road, watched Lily. Most nights he pulled a double. "I told her 9. She negotiated me to 9:30. Then she informed me that 9:30 was a suggestion. She's got a future in law. She's got a future in something. Where are you?" "Coming up the switchbacks. Half hour." "Ethan." Ruth's voice changed. "The pass is bad. Sheriff's office put out a slow travel advisory an hour ago. I've driven this road since I was 16. That's what everyone says right before I read about them." "Ruth." "Fine. Fine." A pause. "The shop pay you yet?" He didn't answer. "Ethan." "Friday," he said. "They said Friday." "They said Friday last Friday." "Then I guess I've got 2 Fridays coming." She made a sound like a kettle going off. "You know what your problem is. You fix everything except your own situation." "Good night, Ruth." "Drive slow, you stubborn." He hung up. The truck's headlights carved out about 60 feet of falling snow and nothing else. He kept it in second, kept both hands on the wheel, kept thinking about Friday. Sarah had been gone 4 years. 4 years, 2 months, and some number of days. He'd stopped counting out loud, because counting out loud made Lily's face do something he couldn't fix. He'd sold the good tools, then the second truck, then the house in town, and they'd moved up to the cabin his father left him, the one with the wood stove and the bad well, and the view. Lily said looked like the inside of a snow globe. How was a mechanic now? That's what the paperwork said. He kept ambulances running and rescue rigs breathing for a county that paid him late and thanked him rarely. 10 years ago, the paperwork had said something else. 10 years ago, he'd had a title, a badge on a lanyard, and a job where people's lives depended on whether he'd done the math right. He didn't think about that. He'd built a whole personality out of not thinking about that. Then he came around the bend below Miller's Notch and saw the shape in the ditch. He almost drove past it. That's the thing he'd think about later at 3 in the morning for the rest of his life. He almost drove past it. Deer carcass. That's what his brain said. Duffel bag off somebody's roof rack. Trash. He got 40 feet past it before he hit the brakes. The truck slid caught, stopped crooked in the road. He sat there with his heart going and his wipers slapping. "Deer," he said out loud. "It's a deer." He put it in reverse anyway. The headlights swung back around and lit it up, and it was a coat. A long, pale, expensive-looking coat and inside. The coat was a person face down in 8 inches of snow. One arm stretched out like she'd been reaching for the road when she stopped. Ethan was out of the truck before he decided to be. "Hey." He went down the embankment on his heels, half sliding. "Hey, ma'am, hey." He got a hand under her shoulder and turned her over, and she was young. 30 maybe. Dark hair frozen to her cheek. Blood on her temple gone tacky and brown. Lips the color of skim milk. "Ma'am." He put 2 fingers against her throat. There. Fast and thin, but there. Okay, he breathed. Okay. You're okay. Her eyes opened. They didn't open slow, the way people's eyes open when they're coming back from somewhere. They snapped open, and she looked at him, and what was in them wasn't confusion. It was terror. She hit him, open-handed in the ear with everything she had left, which wasn't much, but it wasn't nothing either. Whoa, whoa. Ethan caught her wrist. I'm not hey, look at me, look at my face, I'm nobody, I'm a guy in a truck. She was thrashing, and every thrash cost her, and he could see the exact moment her body ran out of fuel and quit on her. She went limp against his arm, breathing in short, broken pulls. You with me? Don't. Her voice was sandpaper. Don't call anyone. You're hypothermic. There's blood on your head. Don't call anyone. Ma'am, I'm gonna call an ambulance and then... Her hand closed on his jacket. For somebody at the end of her rope, she had a grip like a vice. If you call anyone, she said, I'll be dead before morning. And that's when Ethan saw the light on the road above them. Not headlights. He'd have seen headlights coming a mile off in that snow. This was the low amber wash of parking lamps, and it was moving, and it was coming down the grade toward them with its main beams off. Nobody drives that road at night without headlights. Nobody. Something old woke up in the back of Ethan Carter's skull. Something from the years he didn't think about when he'd been trained to make one decision in 4 seconds and live with it. Can you walk? No. Then hold on. He got an arm under her knees and one across her back and stood up out of the ditch with her, and his boot went out from under him on the first step, and he took it on his knee instead of dropping her, and he felt something in that knee say, you'll pay for this later. He paid attention to the SUV instead. It had stopped, 20 yards up, sitting there in the dark with its parking lamps on, like a man breathing quietly in a room where he shouldn't be. Ethan set her down behind his truck's rear tire, where the bulk of the engine block was between her and them. Stay down. What are you? Stay down. There was a guardrail post lying loose in the snow where the county crew had never come back to finish the job. Ethan pulled it out with both hands, and the frozen ground gave it up with a crack like a rifle shot. He walked up the middle of the road with it. The SUV's engine came up. It rolled forward. And Ethan saw the front passenger window come down about 4 inches, and he did not wait to see what came out of it. He swung. The post came through the windshield on the passenger side, and the whole thing went white with cracks, and somebody inside shouted. And the SUV threw itself into reverse so hard it fishtailed into the berm and back out again, and then it was gone up the grade backward with its wheels screaming. Ethan stood in the road with a bent piece of steel in his hands and snow coming down on his shoulders. He was shaking. He hadn't shaken in years. Hey. He turned. Hey, are you? The woman was on her hands and knees in the road crawling toward the truck. Crawling. Leaving red in the snow behind her. He got to her in 4 strides. Okay, he said. New plan. You're getting in the truck. I can't go to a hospital. I heard you. I mean it, I can't. Lady. He got her up, got the door, got her into the passenger seat, and she made a small animal sound when her left shoulder took her weight. I heard you. Both hands. Grab the handle. He slammed the door and went around and got in and put the heat on full, which did nothing because the heat did nothing until 60, and there was no 60 on that road tonight. He looked at her. Snow melting in her hair, blood on her collar, coat that cost more than his truck. What's your name? She hesitated. He watched her hesitate. Watched a woman half frozen and bleeding build an answer. Claire, she said. Claire Morgan. Okay, Claire Morgan. He put the truck in gear. I've got a cabin 9 miles up. There's a wood stove and a first aid kit, and a little girl asleep in the back room, so whatever this is, it does not come into my house. You understand me? She looked at him. Say it, he said. It doesn't come into your house. Good. He pulled out. Then let's go get you warm. She passed out twice on the way up. The first time he shook her knee and said her name, and she came back swinging. The second time he had to pull over, and he pressed his knuckles hard into her sternum, and she came up gasping and swore at him in a way that told him she'd gone to schools he hadn't. "Stay awake," he said. "Talk to me." "About what?" "Anything. Where you from?" "Nowhere." "Great. Love it there." He geared down for the last switchback. "You got people?" "No. Everybody's got people." "Not everybody." "Kids?" "No." "Husband, boyfriend? Somebody who calls when you don't come home?" She was quiet a second too long. "No." "Huh." He kept his eyes on the road. "That's a lot of no for one person." "You ask a lot of questions for a guy in a truck." "You've got blood on your head and no shoes." She looked down at her feet. Wool socks soaked black torn open at the heel. She looked at them for a long moment, like she'd never seen them before. "I had shoes," she said quietly. Ethan didn't say anything to that. He turned the heat up higher for the principle of the thing. Ruth Nolan met him at the door with her coat already on, took one look past his shoulder and said, "Lord God." "Ruth." "Who is B, Ruth?" He got Claire through the doorway with an arm around her waist, and Claire's legs went out at the threshold, and he took the weight. "Is Lily asleep?" 20 minutes ago." "Keep her that way." "Ethan Carter, you tell me right now what you dragged into this house." "I found her on the road below the notch, face down. Somebody was coming back for her." He got Claire into the chair by the stove. "Get me the kit from under the sink and the wool blanket off my bed." Ruth stood there. "Ruth." She went. Ethan crouched in front of the chair. Claire's eyes were closed, and her jaw was going like a jackhammer teeth, chattering so hard he could hear it over the stove. "Claire, I need to look at your head." "I'm fine." "Yeah, you're a picture of health." He took her chin gently and turned it. The cut ran along the hairline above her left ear 4 inches deep enough that it should have had stitches an hour ago. "How'd you get this?" "I fell." "Onto what?" "The ground." "Uh-huh." He pressed a folded towel against it. "You always fall in a straight line 4 inches long." She opened her eyes and looked at him and didn't answer. Ruth came back with the kit and the blanket and a hot water bottle. Nobody had asked for, which was the single most Ruth Nolan thing that had ever happened. "Shoulders out," Ethan said, not looking up. "You see how she's holding it?" "I see it." "Left ankle's the size of a grapefruit. Head laceration. Core temps in the basement." He glanced at Ruth. "That's not a fall down an embankment. That's a fall down an embankment while somebody was chasing her." Claire's eyes came up sharp. "I've pulled 60 people out of that canyon," Ethan said to her evenly. "I know what the mountain does to a person, and I know what a person does to a person." For 1 second, the woman in the chair stopped performing. Her chin went just once. Then she locked it back down. "It's not dislocated," she said. "It's a sprain. I need the sling in about 9 hours." "You know a lot about shoulders." "I know a lot about a lot of things." "Bet you do." He got her warm the slow way, because the fast way kills people. Blanket hot water bottle in the armpits. Warm sweet tea she couldn't hold without both hands. Ruth stood in the corner with her arms crossed, radiating disapproval at a level that could have heated the whole cabin. Around 1, Ruth got her coat and her keys. At the door she said quietly, "You should call Tom." "I know. He's the sheriff. That's literally the job." "I know, Ruth." "So call him." Ethan looked back at the chair by the stove. "She said if I call anybody she's dead by morning," he said. "And there was a man in a truck on my road with his lights off. So I'm going to sit here till the sun comes up, and I'm going to keep my daughter's door shut, and at 7 a.m. I'll know a lot more than I know right now." Ruth's mouth went thin. "You always did this," she said. "Did what?" "Ran toward it." She pulled her hood up. "Sarah used to say that. She'd say everybody else hears the crash and ducks. Ethan hears the crash and runs at it." She opened the door and the cold came in. "It cost you your whole life once already." "Good night, Ruth." "Lock the door," she said. He locked the door. He found the device at 2:15 in the morning. He was hanging her coat by the stove, and it hit the floor with a sound coats don't make. He picked it up. There was an inside pocket sewn in Knot Factory, and in the pocket was a hard black case about the size of a paperback. He stood there holding it. Put it back. He turned around. She was awake in the chair, and she was watching him with an expression he'd only ever seen on animals in traps. Ma'am. Put it back. You went off a bank at 40 feet, Ethan said. You've got a headlack, a bad shoulder, and no shoes, and you crawled. You crawled on your hands and knees in the road, and you never once asked me for a phone. Put it back. Everybody asks for a phone. He set the case on the table carefully and pushed it toward her and took his hands off it. That's the first thing every single person asks for. Can I use your phone? You didn't. You asked me not to call anyone. She didn't move. So I figure whatever is in that box is the reason. He sat down across from her. And I want you to know I'm not going to open it. It's yours. It's on the table. I'm over here. Something in her face came apart very slightly and knit itself back together. Why? She said. Why what? Why aren't you asking me who I am? Ethan leaned back and rubbed the knee that had gone down on the ice. Because you already gave me a name, he said. And it isn't yours. Silence. The stove ticked. You said it wrong, he said. People don't hesitate before their own name. And when Ruth handed you the tea, you said thank you so much, like you were thanking a waiter in a restaurant with cloth napkins, and your hands. He nodded at them. Those aren't hands that have been outside in 20 years. Are you a cop? I'm a mechanic. Mechanics don't talk like that. This one does. He got up. You hungry? She stared at him. What? Hungry. Food. I've got eggs. I've got bread that's a day past its prime, and I've got exactly 1 can of soup that my daughter has been guarding like the Federal Reserve. He was already at the stove. You look like you haven't eaten since yesterday. Since Tuesday, she said. He stopped, turned around. She looked away first. He didn't ask. He cracked 6 eggs into a pan. Lily came out at 3 in the morning. She did it the way kids do, no sound at all, until she was standing right there in the doorway, in her too big sweatshirt with the dog on it. Hair in every direction, holding a stuffed rabbit that had been through 2 washing machines and 1 house move. Dad. Hey, Bug. Ethan didn't jump. Ethan had trained himself never to jump. You're supposed to be asleep. There's a lady. There is. Lily looked at Claire. Claire looked back, and Ethan watched the woman in the chair go absolutely rigid, like she'd rather have faced the SUV again. Are you hurt? Lily asked. Yes, Claire said. Did you crash? Something like that. Lily nodded very seriously and walked right up to her, which is a thing 8-year-olds do that adults have to be talked into. My dad fixes stuff, Lily said. I've heard. No, but he actually fixes stuff, like the ambulance, and Mr. Renner's snowblower, and my music box. She held the rabbit out slightly. This is Pepper. You can hold her if you want. She helps. Claire Morgan, who was not Claire Morgan, looked at the stuffed rabbit for about 4 seconds. Then she took it with her good hand. Thank you, she said, and her voice cracked straight down the middle, and she turned her face fast toward the stove. Okay, Ethan said. Bed. But, bedbug. She's gonna be here in the morning. Promise. He looked at Claire. Promise, he said. Lily went. At the door she turned around. What's your name? Ethan watched the woman's mouth open and close. Claire, she said. That's pretty, Lily said and disappeared. The door clicked. The stove ticked. Somewhere down the valley a plow was working faint and then not. Claire held the rabbit against her chest with her good arm and cried without making any noise at all, the way people cry when they learn to do it somewhere they weren't allowed. Ethan got up and went to the sink and washed a pan that was already clean and gave her 4 minutes. Then he sat back down. Okay, he said. Tell me about the box. It's broken, she said. Yeah, I figured. I don't mean the screen. I mean it took a hit. It won't power. She wiped her face with the heel of her hand. There's a connector, and I think it's... Open it. She hesitated. Then she did. Inside the case in gray foam was a black rectangular unit about the size of a hardback book. No branding, no logo. A row of ports on one edge, and a screen that was cracked in one corner, and a housing that was bent inward on the left side where it had taken the full weight of a human being landing on it. Ethan looked at it for a long moment. "That's not a laptop," he said. "No. That's a hardened field unit." Her head came up. "That's a mil-spec case, that's a locking bulkhead connector, and that's a tamper seal on the seam." He pointed without touching. "That's a black box or something built by people who build black boxes." "How," she said slowly, "does a mechanic in a cabin know that? Can I pick it up? How do you know that?" "Claire." He met her eyes. "I'll trade you. But you go first and you go later, and right now the only thing I want to do is get that thing to turn on before whoever's driving that SUV finds this road. So can I pick it up?" She looked at him for a long, long time. Then she pushed it across the table. He worked for an hour and 40 minutes at the kitchen table under a clamp light. The bulkhead connector had 2 bent pins, which was nothing. The housing deformation had put pressure on the board, which was something. There was a hairline fracture across a trace near the power management section, which was the whole problem. He talked while he worked. He didn't know why. Maybe because she was watching him with an intensity he hadn't felt aimed at him in a decade. "Pins are easy," he said. "Pins you straighten. It's the board. See that? That silver line. I see it. That's a road for electricity, and it's got a washout in it. Nothing gets across." He set the light closer. "So we build a bridge. You can do that. I've done it on worse." "With what?" He held up a spool. 30-gauge wire, he said. "And a steady hand, and about 9 years of not being allowed to work on anything that mattered." She went quiet at that. He soldered. 2 joints, each one the size of a grain of rice. His hands didn't shake at all, which struck him as funny, considering an hour ago he'd been shaking so hard he could barely hold the steering wheel. At 4:52 in the morning, he seated the connector, closed the housing, and thumbed the power stud. Nothing. "Come on," he said. "Nothing." Claire's breath went out of her. Ethan turned the unit over, put his thumb on the seam, and hit it once with the heel of his hand. The screen lit up. She made a sound. He'd remember that sound. It was half a laugh and half something else entirely, and she put her hand over her mouth like she'd embarrassed herself. "You hit it," she said. "Percussive maintenance. It's a very technical field. You hit a... You want it to work, or you want it treated with respect." And then Claire Morgan laughed out loud at 5 in the morning, with a head wound and a busted shoulder and a stolen rabbit under her arm. "There," Ethan said. He turned the screen toward her. "That's all yours. I don't want to see it. I'm gonna go put another log on and check on my..." He stopped. Because the screen had finished booting, and it hadn't asked for a password, because the last user hadn't ever gotten the chance to lock it. And a directory was sitting right there in white letters on black, and it was open to a folder, and the folder was full of files, and the file at the top of the list said, Incident 1147, Carter E., Original Submission, Unredacted. Ethan didn't move. He didn't breathe. 10 years. He had spent 10 years being told that file did not exist. He had sat across a table from 3 lawyers who told him that file did not exist. He had lost a career, a license, a house, and very nearly a marriage over a document that a very expensive man in a very good suit had looked him in the eye and told him he had imagined. "Ethan," Claire said. He heard his own voice come out of somewhere far away. "Where did you get this?" "What? Where did you get this?" She looked at the screen, then at him, and he watched her read the name on it, and he watched her put it together, and he watched the color go out of a face that didn't have much color left to lose. "Carter," she said. "Answer me. Your name is Carter." "Claire. Ethan Carter." She was up out of the chair, forgetting her ankle, and it went under her, and he caught her, and she grabbed his forearm with her one good hand and held on so hard her knuckles went white. "Do you know what that file is?" she whispered. "I wrote that file." And outside, faint from somewhere far down the valley, came a sound that Ethan Carter had heard 10,000 times in his old life, and not one single time since. Rotors. More than one. 5 o'clock in the morning, and the sound was coming up the valley like weather. Ethan set the unit down on the table and stood very still with his head tilted. "That's not one," he said. "What? That's not one aircraft. That's 3. He crossed the room in 4 steps and killed the clamp light, then the lamp, then the light over the stove, and the cabin went down to nothing but the orange seam around the wood stove door. 2 turbine, 1 piston. The piston one is old. County Rescue flies an old one. Claire was on her feet, weight all on her right leg, holding the back of the chair. "How can you possibly know that?" "Because I spent 9 years listening for it." "Ethan, how did they find you?" "They didn't. They can't. I threw my phone off a bridge on Tuesday. I paid cash, I took a bus, I got out at a gas station, and I walked. Then how are there 3 helicopters on my mountain at 5 in the morning?" She opened her mouth, and nothing came out, and he watched the answer arrive in her face like a slap. "The unit," she said. "What about it?" "What?" "It has a locator. It has a locator. It's a field unit, of course. It has a locator, and it was dead for 4 days, and you just—" She stopped. "You just turned it on." Ethan didn't say anything for 2 full seconds. "How long has it been on?" 8 minutes. "Then we've got maybe 6. He moved. He wasn't a man who moved fast in his ordinary life anymore. He was a man who took his time with a coffee and took his time with a torque wrench. But something in him shifted gears, and he was across the room and back with a screwdriver before she'd finished turning around. "What are you doing?" "Something I'm going to regret." "That's evidence that's the only copy if you break it. I have nothing. I have nothing. Do you understand what I gave up to?" "Claire. Don't touch it. Claire." He got the housing open. "I'm not breaking it. I'm doing surgery." 6 screws. He set them himself an hour ago, and he knew exactly how tight they were. The board came up on its standoffs, and underneath it, seated in a shielded bay, was a storage module the size of 2 stacked sticks of gum. "There," he said. "That's the brain. That's what you carried off a mountain. What are you going to do with it?" "I'm going to put it somewhere that isn't in their hands in 10 minutes. They'll know it's missing. Eventually." He pulled the module and closed his fist around it. "Not at 5 in the morning in the dark with everybody yelling. People see what they came to see. They came to see a black box. There's going to be a black box. And when they open it, then they'll open it in a building somewhere with the lights on, and by then I want you and that thing in 2 different places." He reseated the empty bay cover and started the screws. "Because if it's on you, you're worth exactly as much as it is. And if it's not on you, then somebody has to keep you alive to find out where you put it." Claire stared at him. "That's the coldest thing anybody's ever said to me," she said. "It's 5 in the morning. It's also the first thing anybody's said to me in a year that was actually about me not dying." Ethan got the last screw in and wiped the case with his sleeve. "Yeah, well." He didn't look up. "Your friends have a low bar." At 6 minutes past 5. Ruth Nolan called. He put her on speaker because his hands were full. "Ethan Carter, there are helicopters." "I hear them, Ruth. There are helicopters over the notch, and one of them has a spotlight, and it just went over my roof so low, my dishes moved. Do you hear me? My dishes moved." "Ruth, listen to me. I am calling Tom. Tom's already in one of them. Ruth, listen. Do not come up here. Whatever you hear, whatever you see, you stay in your house." There was a silence on the line with a lot in it. "It's about her," Ruth said. "Yes." "Is she worth it?" Ethan looked over at the woman standing in his kitchen, in his dead wife's wool socks with a stuffed rabbit still pinned under her bad arm, because she hadn't put it down, because she'd forgotten she was holding it. "I don't know yet," he said. "That's not a no." "No," he said. "It's not." He hung up. He crossed to Lily's door and opened it 4 inches. She was already sitting up. "Dad, is it an ambulance?" "It's helicopters, Bug." "Is somebody hurt?" "Nobody's hurt." He knelt down. "I need you to do a hard thing for me." Okay. I need you to stay in this room until I come get you. Not until it's quiet. Not until you're curious. Until I come get you and say your name. Lily's face did a thing that was too old for her. Is it about the lady? Yeah. Is she a bad guy? Ethan thought about that for exactly as long as it deserved. No, he said. I think she's somebody who got scared and ran, and the people chasing her are going to say a lot of loud things, and none of them are your business. You read your book. You keep Pepper safe. She has Pepper. Then you keep the door shut and I'll get Pepper back. Lily grabbed his sleeve as he stood. Dad, don't run at it. He stopped. Where'd you hear that? Ruth says it. She says you always run at it. Ruth talks too much. Dad, I'll be right outside this door, Ethan said. That's a promise and I don't break those. He shut it. He stood with his hand on the knob for a second longer than he needed to. Then he went back out and set the black case in the middle of the kitchen table where anybody walking through the door would see it first, and he put the storage module in the one place in that cabin nobody on earth would look, and he sat down and folded his hands. That's it, Claire said. You're just going to sit there. You want me to run? Where do we go, Claire? I've got a girl in the back room and a truck with 290,000 miles on it, and there are 3 aircraft looking down the throat of this valley. So we let them in. We let them come to us. There's a difference. He nodded at the chair across from him. Sit down before you fall down. And listen, because I'm going to say this once, and then it's going to get loud in here. She sat. When they come through that door, they're going to want 2 things. They're going to want you, and they're going to want that. He pointed at the case. They get one of them, and only if you say so. Not if they say so. Not if a badge says so. If you tell me to hand it over, I hand it over. If you don't, then they're going to have to explain to a county sheriff why they're taking property out of a private residence at gunpoint. You don't understand who these people are. No, Ethan said. I'm starting to think I'm the only person in this room who does. The first helicopter came in at 19 minutes past 5 and put its light on the cabin. The whole place lit up white through the curtains, and the windows started to buzz in their frames, and out in the yard, the snow came off the ground in a wall. That's the old one, Ethan said. That's county. The second came in 90 seconds later and set down out past the woodpile, and Ethan felt it in his back teeth. The third didn't land right away. The third circled. It went around the cabin twice slow, the way a man walks around a car he's thinking about buying. That one's yours, Ethan said. Claire had both hands flat on the table. She was breathing wrong. Hey. He put his hand over her wrist. Look at me. Not the window. Me. I can't do this. You crawled up an embankment on your hands and knees. That was different. How? Because out there, I was just cold, she said. In here, I have to be her again. Ethan didn't have an answer for that. He didn't need one because right then somebody hit his front door hard enough to knock the calendar off the nail. Sheriff's office, Ethan opened the door. He got up and opened it. Tom Reyes came in with snow all over him and his hand up like a man calming a horse, and behind him came 2 rescue techs in county red, and behind them coming across the yard fast were 4 men in dark jackets who were not county anything. Tom. Ethan, I need you to just... Tom, who are these people? Ethan. Because they're on my property, and I don't remember hearing anybody ask. Ethan. I got woke up at 4:15 by a phone call from a man in Denver, who then patched in a man in Washington, and I have spent the last hour being told what's going to happen in my own county. Tom's jaw was tight. So do us both a favor, and don't make this the day you find out what these people are like. Too late, Ethan said. One of them tried to run her over at 11 o'clock last night. The room stopped. Tom turned around slowly. Say that again. Black SUV, no plates. I could see running dark on the grade below the notch. She was face down in the ditch, and it was coming down on her at maybe 15 miles an hour with its lights off, and it did not stop, and it did not slow. Ethan let that sit. I put a guardrail post through the windshield passenger side. So when your friends from Denver get here, You go ahead and ask them if anybody's got a cracked windshield." Nobody moved for about 3 seconds. Then a woman came through the door, and everything rearranged itself around her. She was maybe 50. Short gray hair, no makeup, a jacket with no logo on it, and the flattest eyes Ethan had seen since a courtroom 10 years ago. "Miss Whitmore," she said. "Thank God." Ethan turned his head. Claire had gone absolutely still in the chair. "Whitmore," Ethan said. "Dana Kessler, Corporate Protective Services." The woman didn't look at him. "Miss Whitmore, are you injured?" "I'm fine." "You're not fine. Are you injured?" "Dana." "Ma'am, I have had 200 people on the ground in 3 states for 4 days. I have had your mother on the phone with me at 2 in the morning twice. Are you injured?" "Shoulder and ankle," Claire said quietly. "And my head." He handled it. "He," Kessler said, and only then did she look at Ethan, and it took her about 1 second to file him somewhere near the bottom of a very long list. "And you are?" "The he." "Your name?" "Carter." Something crossed Dana Kessler's face. It was very small, and it was very fast, and Ethan caught it anyway because he'd spent 10 years watching for exactly that expression on exactly that kind of face. "Carter," she said. "That's right." "Huh," she said, and turned away, and that little word sat down in Ethan's chest and made itself at home. By 5:31, there were 11 people in a cabin built for 3. The county medics got Claire's boot cut off and got a proper sling on her and got a line in her arm, and one of them told her she'd have been dead by 2 a.m. if she'd stayed in that ditch and set it in the flat, cheerful way medics say things like that. Kessler's people went through the cabin without asking anybody. One of them opened Lily's door. Ethan crossed the room so fast that 2 men put hands on him. "That's a child's room." "Sir, that is my daughter's room, and she is 8 years old, and she is in it." "Sir, step back." "Kessler." Ethan didn't raise his voice. He'd learned a long time ago that the quiet ones land harder. "Call him off, right now, or I promise you the story this county hears by lunchtime is that your people put hands on a little girl in her own bed." Kessler looked at him for a moment. "Bennett," she said. "Out." The door closed. "Thank you," Ethan said. "Don't." Kessler was already moving. "That was for me, not for you." And that was when she saw the case on the table. She stopped talking mid-step. She actually stopped talking. She crossed the room and picked it up in both hands, and something went out of her shoulders that had probably been in there for 4 days. "It's here," she said to nobody. "It's here." "Put it down," Ethan said. "Excuse me." "That's not yours. Put it down. Mr. Carter, this is corporate property valued in the millions, and it is the subject of an active recovery." "Then recover it from her because she's the one who was carrying it, and she's sitting right there, and I haven't heard her say one word about giving it to anybody." Kessler turned. "Miss Whitmore, tell him." Claire didn't answer. "Miss Whitmore." "I'd like it on the table," Claire said. Kessler blinked. "Ma'am?" "On the table, Dana. Ma'am, with respect, you have been missing for 91 hours. You have a head injury, and you are not." "Am I not what?" Claire's voice came up for the first time since the door opened, and it came up with something in it that hadn't been there all night, something that had been built in boardrooms. "Finish that sentence in front of the sheriff. I'm not what Dana." Dana Kessler put the case on the table. "Thank you," Claire said. And then the third helicopter finally set down. Ethan heard it change. Pitch heard it settle, heard the turbine start to spool down, and he watched every single person in that room turn toward the door in a way that told him more than an hour of conversation would have. "Who's on that one?" he asked. Nobody answered him. "Tom. Who's on that one?" "Tom." Reyes looked at the floor. The door opened at 5:41 in the morning. 2 men came through first and stood aside. Then a third man came in, and he took his gloves off one finger at a time before he did anything else. And Ethan Carter felt the entire 10 years of his life fall down on him at once. He was older. That was the first thing. Silver now where it had been salt and pepper. Same build, same posture, Same way of stepping into a room like the room had been waiting for him. Claire, Victor Hale said, and Claire Whitmore, who had faced down a mountain and SUV, and a woman with dead eyes, made a sound like something breaking, and said, "Victor." He crossed the room to her. He crouched down beside the chair in a $900 coat on a floor Ethan had swept with a broom that was older than Lily. 4 days, he said. I know. 4 days, sweetheart. I know. Your mother has not slept. I have not slept. He took her good hand in both of his. Do you have any idea what I thought when they found your car? Do you have any idea what I imagined? I have known you since you were 11 years old. I carried you on my shoulders at your father's plant opening, and you ran from me. Claire's face came apart. Ethan watched it happen. Watched her go from a woman who'd said, "Don't call anyone, I'll be dead before morning," to a woman with tears going down her face and her hand in the hands of the man in the good coat. And something in his stomach went cold, because there are only 2 ways that math works out, and neither one of them was good. "Victor," she said, "I have to tell you something. Later." "No, later." He patted her hand. "Right now you're going to a hospital. Right now that's the only thing that's happening." And then Victor Hale stood up and turned around and saw Ethan. Ethan watched it land. It took a full 3 seconds, and he'd remember every one of them. The eyes went across him the way they'd have gone across a chair. Then they came back. Then they stopped. Then something moved behind them. Some file drawer sliding open in a very organized mind, and the man's chin lifted about 1/4 of an inch. "Well," Victor Hale said. "Hello, Victor." "It can't be." "It is. Ethan Carter." He said the whole name like he was reading it off a plaque. "In a cabin, on a mountain, 90 miles from anywhere." 81, Ethan said. "But who's counting?" "Do you know?" Victor said, turning slightly, addressing the room now, because that was what he did. That was what he had always done. "There is a version of this that is so unlikely that a reasonable person simply refuses to believe it. Out of every road in this state, out of every truck on every road." He smiled. "And she lands in his ditch." "Victor," Claire's voice. "Sweetheart, do you know who this is?" "He's the man who kept me alive." "He's the man," Victor said, "who signed off on the actuator housings in the Sentinel-9 restraint system. 19 units. 4 fatalities. Do you remember that? You'd have been, what, 22? It was in every paper in the country for about 6 days." Ethan didn't move. "2 of them were kids," Victor said, and there it was. The oldest, cleanest, cruelest trick in the book. And it still worked. It still went through Ethan like a nail, because there was a piece of it that was true, and the true piece was the part that had never let him sleep. "Say the rest," Ethan said. "There is no rest." "Say the rest, Victor. There were 11 people in that review, and you got to pick which one of them the world was allowed to hear about. So say the rest." "You're upsetting my people. I filed a report. You filed a memo. I filed a report on March 19th, and I filed it up the chain with attachments, and I sat in a room with you on March 22nd and told you those housings were going to fail. Cold. And you told me the tooling change was $11 million and we'd take another look in Q3. Ethan's voice hadn't come up at all. That was the thing. It hadn't come up one notch. And then in June 4 people died. And in August a lawyer sat across from me and said there was no report. There was no report. There was. There was no report, Mr. Carter, because I read the file. There is no such document. "Yeah," Ethan said. "You know, that's what I thought too, for 10 years. And he looked at the black case sitting on his kitchen table. Victor Hale's eyes followed his. And for the first time in 10 years, Ethan Carter got to watch that man's face do something he hadn't planned. It lasted less than a second. Then it was gone, and the coat was smooth, and the voice was warm again. "Dana," Victor said, "bring the unit." "No," Ethan said. "Sheriff, this is corporate property." "It's her property," Ethan said. "She carried it up a mountain." "Sheriff Reyes." Tom Reyes had gone gray. "Ethan, don't." Tom, in your professional opinion, if a woman walks into a house holding something and she is conscious and lucid and sitting right there, whose is it? Ethan. Whose is it, Tom? Hers, Tom said miserably. The room got very quiet. Victor Hale turned to Claire. Claire, he said, tell them. And Ethan watched her look at the case, and then at Victor, and then at Ethan, and he saw the whole war go across her face in about 4 seconds. Claire, he said quietly, you don't owe anybody in this room anything, including me. Don't listen to him, Victor said. Claire, sweetheart, look at me. Whatever you found, whatever you think you found, we handle it internally. We handle it like a family. That's what your father built. You do not hand a company's proprietary data to a mechanic in a cabin. And Claire Whitmore said, he's not a mechanic. Victor stopped. What? He's not a mechanic, Victor. He's the engineer of record on Incident 1147. Her voice was shaking, and she kept going anyway. And I know that because I have read the original submission, the unredacted one, twice, on Monday night, in your office. Nobody breathed. On the drive you keep in the safe behind the Hopper print, she said. The one you told the board was destroyed in the 2019 migration. Victor Hale's face did not change at all, and somehow, that was the most frightening thing in the room. You went into my office, he said. Yes. You went into my safe. Yes. Claire, sweetheart. He crouched again, and this time she flinched, and he pretended not to see it. You've had a head injury. You've been outside for 4 days. You have not eaten. You are going to say things this morning that we are all going to be very glad later that nobody wrote down. Victor, nobody wrote it down, he said gently. Did they, Dana? No, sir, Dana Kessler said. And Ethan understood right then, standing in his own kitchen, exactly how a person disappears in the modern world. Not violently, not in the dark. In a room full of professionals quietly with everybody agreeing that she was tired. Tom, he said. Ethan I. Tom, look at her. Tom Reyes looked at her. She's got a 4-inch laceration on her head, and her shoulders wrecked, and she went off a bank in the dark, and last night somebody came down that road with their lights off. Now maybe I'm a fool. Maybe I've been a fool my whole life, ask anybody in this county. But you've known me 20 years, and I have never once lied to you, not about a call, not about a body, not about anything. Ethan didn't raise his voice. So I'm telling you, if that woman leaves this cabin in that aircraft, nobody is ever going to hear what she has to say again. Tom Reyes stood there with 11 people looking at him, and a career in a county that paid him $39,000 a year. Miss Whitmore, he said, do you want to go with these people? Silence. Ma'am, Tom said. Yes or no? Do you want to go with these people? No, Claire said. Dana Kessler closed her eyes. There it is, Tom said. He put his hat back on. Then that's the whole ball game, folks. She rides down with County. She goes to Mercy and Fairview. She gets a CT and a proper reduction on that shoulder. And anybody who wants to talk to her can talk to her at the hospital with her own attorney present. Sheriff, Kessler said. Ma'am, you can be angry with me at sea level. Sheriff, you're making a mistake. Wouldn't be my first. And Victor Hale, who had not said a word for 30 seconds, straightened up and buttoned his coat. Fine, he said. Everybody turned. Fine, Kessler said. She's had a shock. She's hurt. Get her to a hospital. Victor smiled, and it was a good smile. It was a warm smile. It was the smile of a man who has been reasonable in front of witnesses. Claire, I'll be at Mercy by 7. Your mother will be there by 9, and we'll sort all of this out like adults. He picked up the black case off the table. Victor, Claire said. This is company property, sweetheart, and that part isn't in dispute. Sheriff? Tom Reyes hesitated, and then God help him nodded. Victor Hale tucked the case under his arm. Mr. Carter, he said. Victor. You look old. I've had a decade. Yes. Victor paused at the door. So have I. Mine was better. They took Claire out at 6:08 with a blanket over her, and Ruth Nolan's spare boots on her feet, and she caught Ethan's arm as they went past and got about 4 inches from his ear. "Why aren't you fighting?" she whispered. "I already did." "He has it." "Yeah," Ethan said. "He does." And then the room emptied, and the rotors came up, and the whole cabin shook itself like a wet dog, and Ethan Carter stood in his kitchen alone, with his hands at his sides, and he waited. He waited 4 minutes. Then he went into the back bedroom, and his daughter was sitting exactly where he'd left her with her book upside down in her lap, because she hadn't read a word of it, and he said, "Lily," which was the promise, and she came off the bed into his arms hard enough to hurt. "Was that loud?" she said into his shoulder. "That was pretty loud." "Is she okay?" "She's going to a hospital, and she's going to be okay." "Is she coming back?" Ethan looked past her at the shelf at the little wooden music box with the chipped ballerina that had been Sarah's, the one he'd fixed twice, the one nobody on this earth would ever think twice about. "Yeah," he said. "She's coming back." Out in the yard, the second helicopter had not lifted. Dana Kessler stood beside it with the black case open on the skid and a light in her teeth, and she got the housing off in about 90 seconds because she was very good at her job. And then she stood up and looked at the cabin for a long, long moment. Then she keyed her radio. "Sir," she said, "the bay's empty." 14 minutes past 6, and the second helicopter still had not lifted. Ethan stood at the window with Lily's hand in his and watched Dana Kessler standing out there in the rotor wash with a radio against her mouth and the empty black case hanging open at her side like a broken jaw. "Dad, what's she doing?" "She's telling somebody bad news." "Is it about us?" "It's about a screw I didn't put back." Kessler lowered the radio. She looked at the cabin for a long moment. Then she walked back to the aircraft, climbed in, and the door shut, and the whole thing came up off the snow and swung out over the trees, and inside of 90 seconds, the valley was quiet for the first time since 5 in the morning. Ethan let out a breath he'd been holding for an hour. "Okay, Bug, boots." "It's Saturday." "I know what day it is. Boots." Ruth Nolan's headlights came up the drive at 6:31, and she was out of the car before it stopped, rolling in a nightgown and a barn coat and her husband's old rubber boots. "Don't," Ethan said. "I haven't said anything." "You're about to." "I have been sitting in my kitchen since 4:15, listening to aircraft go over my house," Ruth said, "and I want you to know that I prayed." Ethan actually prayed out loud like a person, "and I have not done that since Sarah, so yes, I am about to say something." Ruth. "Where is she?" "Hospital. Mercy in Fairview. County took her down." "And the men?" "Gone." "All of them?" Ethan looked at her. "No," he said. Ruth's face changed. "What does that mean?" "It means they got what they came for, and it was empty. And now there's a man on his way to a hospital who has spent 10 years being very sure he'd already finished with me." He crouched and started working Lily's laces. "I need you to take her." "Take her where?" "Your sister's, in Bell Creek." Lily's foot went still under his hands. "Dad." "Just for a couple days." "Dad, no." "Lily." "You said don't run at it, and then you're running at it." Ethan sat back on his heels and looked up at his daughter, and she had Sarah's exact expression, the one that came out when she'd caught him, and knew she'd caught him, and was not going to let him wriggle. "Bug," he said. "You know how the county calls me when the ambulance won't start?" "Yeah." "And you know how I go even at night, even at Christmas?" "Yeah." "Because there's somebody in the back of it," Ethan said. "There's always somebody in the back of it. That's the whole job. It was never about the truck." Lily's chin went. "Is she in the back of it?" "Yeah, Bug, she is." Lily thought about that for about 4 seconds, which for an 8-year-old is a very long time. "Then I'll go to Aunt Deb's," she said. "But you have to call me at night, every night, and you have to say the word." "What word?" "Any word, just so I know it's you saying it and not somebody making you say it." Ruth made a noise behind him. "Where does she get this?" Ruth said. "Television," Ethan said, and pulled his daughter in, and held on a good deal longer than the moment required. At 7:40, driving down out of the pass with the sun coming up on his left, and the module taped inside the ballerina box on the seat beside him, Ethan's phone rang from a number with a Denver area code. He let it ring twice, then he picked up. Mr. Carter. Victor. You've had 4 hours to think, Victor Hale said pleasantly. That's usually plenty. Where is it? Where's what? Please don't. Say the words, Ethan said. Out loud. Tell me exactly what's missing, and I'll tell you if I've seen it. There was a pause on the line. Ethan could hear a hospital behind it, the particular sound of a corridor, a cart going by. You always did this, Victor said. You did it in the review too. You made everybody say the word. It's a small man's habit. It's an engineer's habit. Mr. Carter, I am going to give you a piece of advice that is worth more than anything else you will hear today, and I'm giving it away for free, which I never do. Bring it to me at Mercy in the next 2 hours, hand it over in a parking lot, and I will personally see to it that you go back up your mountain and nothing about your life changes. Not one thing. That's the offer. And if I don't, then by tonight everyone in America will know your name, Victor said. Again. The line was quiet a second. You've got a plan already, Ethan said slowly. You made it on the flight down. You had 30 minutes in a helicopter, and you already wrote the whole thing. I had 22 minutes. What's the story, Victor? The story, Victor said, is that a woman with a documented history of anxiety went missing, and a man with a very public grudge against her company found her in a ditch, and instead of calling for help, he took her to a remote cabin, kept her overnight, removed a piece of hardware worth $11 million from her possession, and is currently in the wind with it. He let that sit. That's not a story I have to invent, Mr. Carter. That's just the last 9 hours with the kindness taken out. Ethan's hands were tight on the wheel. She'll say different. She has a head injury. She'll say different anyway. She will, Victor agreed. For about a day. And then people will start asking her mother whether Claire has been sleeping, and her mother will say no, and her mother will be telling the truth. A soft sound, almost warm. Ethan, I'm not threatening you. I'm describing weather. Victor. Yes. March 19th, Ethan said. You read it. Silence on the line. 4 full seconds of it. And in those 4 seconds, Ethan Carter got the only thing he'd wanted for 10 years. 2 hours, Victor said, and hung up. Mercy General in Fairview had 11 news vans in the lot by 8:15, which told Ethan everything about how fast Victor Hale could move when he wanted to. He parked 3 blocks out behind a feed store and walked. Got as far as the 2nd floor, before a man in a dark jacket stepped in front of him, and Ethan stopped and put both hands up where they could be seen, and said, I'd like to see Claire Whitmore. No visitors. Tell her Ethan's downstairs. No visitors. Tell her anyway. Sir. And then a voice behind him said, Let him up. Dana Kessler was standing at the end of the hall with a coffee she wasn't drinking and about 90 hours of no sleep on her. Ma'am, the man said. Mr. Hale was specific. Mr. Hale is on a call with legal, and he is going to be on that call for 40 minutes. She jerked her chin. Carter, walk with me. They went down a stairwell because she didn't want an elevator, and he understood why without being told. You took the module, she said. Yes. Out of the housing, in the dark, in under 6 minutes with 3 aircraft inbound. Kessler stopped on the landing and turned around. Who trained you? Nobody. I read the schematic upside down and guessed. Don't do that with me. Fine. Ethan leaned on the rail. 11 years at Aldridge Systems Cheyenne. Rescue and restraint hardware. Field service before that 4 seasons. I've had a torque wrench in my hand since I was 19. Kessler nodded slowly. Sentinel 9, she said. Yeah. I was on the recovery team, she said. June 10 years ago, Grand Junction. I was 39 years old, and I was contract security for the manufacturer, and I stood in a parking lot for 6 hours, and I watched them bring 4 people out under sheets, and 2 of them were the size of my nephew. Ethan didn't say anything. For 10 years. Kessler said, I have known your name the way you know the name of a hurricane. I know. And this morning you're standing in a cabin at 5 a.m. with the CEO of my company alive, because you carried her out of a ditch. She looked at him. So you can understand that my week has been unusual. Kessler. Dana. Dana. Ethan straightened up. Ask me the question you actually came down here to ask. Dana Kessler set the coffee on the rail. Last night, she said. The SUV. What about it? Was there one? Yes. Running dark. Yes. Coming down on her at speed. 15, maybe 20. It didn't slow. Ethan met her eyes. It didn't slow, Dana. I want to be very precise about that because I've been thinking about it all morning, and there's a version where a driver just doesn't see a person in a ditch. That's not what happened. It corrected toward her. Kessler's jaw worked. I have 11 vehicles in 3 states, she said. I know where every one of them was at 11 o'clock last night because I built the grid myself. None of them were on that road. Then whose was it? That's my question, Kessler said. I've been asking it since 6:15 this morning, and the answer I keep getting is that a second team was authorized on Wednesday out of the executive office under a line item I have never seen before, and nobody will tell me who's running it. The stairwell was very quiet. You're not with him, Ethan said. I am absolutely with him. He signs my contract. Kessler picked her coffee back up. But I've been doing this 31 years, and there's a thing that happens when a principal goes missing. The client gets scared. That's the tell. A scared client calls you every hour and asks stupid questions and cries on the phone. She looked at him. Victor Hale never called me once. Not one time in 4 days. He waited for me to call him. And every time I did, the first thing he asked about was the unit. Not her. Not her, Kessler said. The unit. 4 days. 9 calls. Room 412 had a deputy outside it, and Claire Whitmore inside it, with an IV in her arm, a proper sling, 11 stitches in her scalp, and a woman in a camel coat sitting beside the bed holding her hand. Ethan stopped in the doorway. Mom, Claire said. This is him. Eleanor Whitmore turned around, and she was 68 years old and had a face that had been photographed at a lot of ribbon cuttings, and she looked at Ethan Carter with an expression he could not read at all. Mrs. Whitmore, Mr. Carter. She stood. I have been told that you are a criminal, and I have been told that you are the reason my daughter is alive, and I have been told both of these things by people I have known for 30 years, and I am too old and too tired to sort it out this morning, so I am going to go and get a cup of coffee. Mom. 10 minutes, Eleanor said. That's all you get before Victor comes back up. Use them. The door shut. Claire tried to sit up and couldn't and gave up on it. You look terrible, she said. You've got a mirror right there, so let's both be careful. She laughed and then winced and then put her good hand over her face. Ethan. Yeah. It's on the news. I know. Not the truth, the other thing. I know, Claire. They have a photograph of your house, she said. They have a photograph of your house. There's a woman on Channel 9 standing in the road below the notch, saying the words, cabin and overnight and 9-hour window, like a rosary, and there's a lawyer on with her explaining what unlawful restraint means in this state, and I lay here at 7:40 and watched a man I have never met tell 4 million people that you kept me. Ethan sat down in the chair. Yeah, he said. He told me he was going to. He told you. Called me on the way down, offered me a trade, hand it back, and none of it happens. Claire went very still. He admitted it. He described it. Different thing. Ethan rubbed his eyes. He's careful. He's always been careful. In 10 years, the man has never once said a sentence you could put in front of a jury. Ethan. She reached over and got hold of his wrist. Do you still have it? Yes. Where? Somewhere. Ethan. Claire, if you don't know, then nobody can make you tell them, and that is the entire reason you don't know. He put his hand over hers. Now talk to me. Monday night, his office. Go. She told him. She told him about a compliance flag on a supplier audit that should have taken 20 minutes and took her 9 hours. She told him about a housing part number that had been superseded in 2016 and then quietly unsuperseded in 2021, and about a tooling contract with a company in Ohio that had been paid $4.1 million to build a die that no plant on Earth had ever received. She told him about the drive in the safe behind the Hopper print, which she had opened because she had watched her father open it 100 times when she was a girl, and the combination was still her own birthday. 1947 files, she said. That's what the folder said. I thought it was a date. It's a case number. Incident 1147 is a case number. There are others. Ethan, there are dozens of others. There's a folder for every single thing that ever went wrong in that company for 22 years, and every one of them has an original document in it, and a second document underneath it that says something different. Ethan sat back slowly. He didn't destroy them, he said. No. Why wouldn't he destroy them? And Claire Whitmore's face did something then that Ethan would think about for a long time afterward. It didn't crumple. It emptied. Because they weren't his, she said. What, Ethan? Her voice had gone almost to nothing. Ask me whose signature is on the deferral memo for Sentinel-9. The room was very quiet. Victor Hale, Ethan said. No. Claire. Victor Hale countersigned it, she said. The approving officer was the chief executive, and in June 10 years ago the chief executive of that company was my father. Ethan did not move. Say that again. My father signed the deferral, Claire said, and now the tears came, and she didn't stop them, and she didn't stop talking either. My father read your report. Your name is in the routing block. E. Carter Engineering, 319. He read it, he wrote, hold pending Q3 capital review in the margin in his own handwriting, and he initialed it, and he gave it to Victor, and 11 weeks later 4 people died, and 2 of them were 9 and 11 years old. Claire. My father who taught me to sail, who cried at my graduation, who died in a hospital bed 3 years ago holding my hand and told me he was proud of me. She was shaking. That's what's in that box, Ethan. That's what I've been carrying up a mountain. Not Victor. Him. Ethan put his head in his hands. That's the leverage, he said. What? That's why Victor never destroyed it. He looked up. Claire, listen to me. This is the whole thing. This is the shape of the whole thing. He kept those files because they weren't evidence against him. They were evidence against your father. He's been sitting on 22 years of that family's worst days. That's not a cover-up. That's a leash. Claire closed her eyes. He's been running that company since my father got sick, she whispered. The board made me CEO 2 years ago, and everybody said it was because of the name, and Victor stood up in that room and said he'd serve at my pleasure, and he smiled. Ethan and I have spent 2 years thinking I was in charge. You were never in charge. No. Because if you ever crossed him, he had a folder. He had a folder, she said, about my father, and he knew I'd never open it. And then, at 9:04 in the morning, the door opened. Victor Hale came in with 2 coffees, and he had his coat over his arm, and he stopped dead when he saw Ethan sitting in the chair, and for 1 second there was nothing at all behind his eyes. Then there was. Well, he said, isn't this nice? Victor. Mr. Carter, in a hospital, uninvited. He set the coffees down carefully. Do you know how many cameras are in the parking lot of this building? 11 vans. 14 now. Victor smiled. And you walked in the front. Side entrance by the loading dock. Even better. That looks worse. He turned to Claire. Sweetheart, has he asked you for anything? Get out, Claire said. Claire. Get out of this room. You are on a great deal of medication. I've had 2 Tylenol. Her voice cracked and rose. 2, Victor. I asked them for 2. Because I wanted to be able to say later in a deposition exactly how many I'd had. Do you understand what it does to a person to have to think like that about the man who taught her to drive? Victor Hale's face went perfectly still. Deposition, he said. Yes. Sweetheart, do you know what a deposition is? It's a transcript. Everything in it is public. Every single thing. He came closer to the bed slow, and his voice went so gentle it made Ethan's skin crawl. Your father's handwriting, on a document, beside the names of 4 dead people, 2 of them children. Read aloud in a room by a lawyer, and then read aloud again by every anchor in this country for 6 weeks. I know. There's a sailing scholarship with his name on it. There's a wing of a hospital. I know what there is. Your mother is downstairs in a cafeteria right now. Claire made a sound. "Victor," Ethan said. "Stay out of this." "Victor." Ethan stood up. "Look at me for a second and stop working." And something about that got through, because Victor Hale actually turned and looked at him, and for a moment, the coat and the voice and the 22 minutes of planning weren't there, and what was underneath was just a tired man of 66 who had built his entire life on a room full of folders. "You could have destroyed it," Ethan said. "Any day for 10 years. One afternoon and a shredder, and none of us would be standing here." "Yes." "Why didn't you?" "Because I'm not a criminal," Victor said. "I'm an executive. I don't destroy records. I manage them." He put his gloves in his pocket. "I have kept that company alive through 2 recessions, a hostile approach, and a founder who could not say no to a capital committee. I have made hard calls that men like you get to be angry about from a distance, because you have never once had to sign anything. I signed the report." "And what did it cost you?" "Everything I had," Ethan said. "You know exactly what it cost me. You're the one who took it." And Victor Hale said quietly, "Yes, I am." Nobody spoke. "There," Ethan said. "That's the first true thing you've said in 10 years. Victor picked up his coat. "You have until noon," he said, and walked out. They gave it 4 seconds. Then Claire said, "Did you get it? Did you get it?" Ethan reached into his jacket pocket and took out his phone, and the screen was lit, and the timer on it said 11 minutes and 40 seconds, and it was still counting. "Every word," he said. Claire laughed, and it turned into a sob halfway. "You recorded him." "I started it in the stairwell." "That's not admissible, is it?" "Is that admissible?" "God, I don't even know what state we're." "It's a one-party state," Ethan said. "Dana told me on the stairs." Claire stopped. "Dana," she said. "Yeah. Dana Kessler." "She wants to know who was driving that SUV," Ethan said. "It wasn't hers. Somebody authorized a second team on Wednesday out of the executive office and won't tell her who's running it. And she's been in this business 31 years, and she doesn't like being made a fool of." "Ethan." Claire's eyes were huge. "Do you know what that means?" "It means we've got about 3 hours before the noon news cycle turns me into a monster, and one very angry professional who's tired of being lied to." At 10:15, Ruth Nolan called, and Ethan almost didn't answer, and for the rest of his life, he'd be glad he did. "Ethan." "Ruth, I can't. There is a man at your gate." Everything in him went cold. "Where's Lily?" "Bell Creek. She's fine. She's with Deb. She's eating pancakes. She is entirely fine, and I want you to hear that first." Ruth's voice was shaking. "I came back for her school bag. There's a truck parked at the bottom of your drive, and there's a man standing at your gate, and he has been standing there for 20 minutes, Ethan, and he isn't doing anything. He's just standing there looking at the house." "Ruth, get in your car." "I'm in my car." "Drive to town. Not home. Town." "Ethan, the truck is the black SUV," Ruth said, "and the windshield on the passenger side is cracked all the way through." Ethan stood up so fast the chair went over. "Ruth, listen to me. Do not stop. Do not slow down. Drive to the sheriff's office in Fairview and walk in the front door and ask for Tom Reyes, and do not leave that building until I get there." "Ethan." "Go." He hung up and turned around, and Claire was already trying to get out of the bed one-handed with an IV in her arm. "What are you doing?" "Coming with you." "You've got 11 stitches." "Ethan, they're at your house." "They're at my house because they know it isn't in my house," Ethan said. "They've had 4 hours and a $14 million security division, and the only place they haven't torn apart is the one place they think I'd never leave it, which means somebody has already been through my truck, my shop, and probably Ruth's barn." Claire stopped with one foot on the floor. "Then where is it?" And Ethan Carter, standing in a hospital room at 10:17 in the morning, with 14 news vans in the parking lot, and his name going out over the wire as a man who had held a woman overnight started to laugh. "Claire," he said, "where does an 8-year-old keep the most important thing in the world?" "What?" "Her music box," he said. "It's been on the shelf in her room since she was 4. It's got a chipped ballerina, and it plays half of Claire de Lune, and then quits. And Dana Kessler's people stood 4 feet from it at 5:30 this morning. Claire stared at him. You left it in the cabin. I left it in the cabin. And then this morning I took it out of the cabin, and it has been on the front seat of my truck the entire time I've been standing here in a feed store parking lot 3 blocks away under a bag of dog food. Ethan. Yeah. Your truck, she said slowly, has been in a parking lot for 2 hours. And that was when his phone buzzed in his hand, a text from a number he didn't know, and it was a photograph, and the photograph was of his own truck, with the driver's door standing open. Underneath it, 4 words. Nice try. Call me. 10:17 in the morning, and Ethan stood in a hospital room, looking at a photograph of his own truck, with the door hanging open. Ethan. Claire had her good hand on the bed rail. What is it? He turned the phone around. She read the 4 words twice. Call them, she said. Yeah. Right now. Ethan, call them right now. He hit the number. It rang once. Mr. Carter. Not Victor, not Kessler. A man's voice, older, flat, and unhurried, the voice of somebody who had spent 30 years talking on radios. Who is this? You don't know me. You've got my truck door open on a phone screen, so I'd say we're past that. Fair. A pause. Name's Ray Doyle. Ethan's whole body went strange. Say that again. Ray Doyle. Field Service, Aldridge Systems, Cheyenne. That's right. You signed the install sheets on Sentinel-9. 19 of them, Doyle said. 1 at a time, in my own handwriting. Yeah. Claire was watching Ethan's face, and she saw something happen in it that made her sit up straight in spite of the stitches. Who is it? She whispered. Ethan held up one finger. Where's my truck, Ray? Feed store lot. Where you left it. I didn't take it, I opened it. Where's what was in it? That's why I'm calling. Where is it? On the seat next to me, Doyle said. Little wooden box, ballerina on the lid chipped on one side. Plays about half a song and quits. A long breath came down the line. I haven't opened it. I want you to know that before anything else gets said. I have not opened it, and I'm not going to. Ethan closed his eyes. Why not? Because I've spent 10 years not looking at things, Doyle said, and I'm about done. Ethan sat down on the arm of the chair. Where do you want to meet? You know the truck stop at the Route 6 junction, the one with the tin roof. I know it. 40 minutes. Come alone, and I don't mean that the way people mean it in movies. I mean, if you bring a sheriff, I'll be gone before he parks, and then you get nothing, and I'm your only good thing today. Ray. Yeah. Last night, Ethan said. On the grade below the notch. Black SUV, no lights. Silence. Ray. That was me driving, Doyle said. Ethan stood up. You ran her down. No. I watched it correct toward her. I know you did, Doyle said, and his voice finally cracked, one hairline fracture straight down the middle of it. I know exactly what you saw because I was looking through the windshield when you swung that post through it, and I want you to understand something, Mr. Carter, and then you can believe it or not. My hands were on the wheel. They weren't the only hands on the wheel. Ethan didn't move. Who else was in that truck? 40 minutes, Doyle said. Tin roof. The line went dead. At 10:24. Claire Whitmore tried to stand up and put her weight on an ankle that was the size of a grapefruit, and Ethan caught her before she got all the way to the floor. Sit down. I'm coming. You're not. Ethan. Claire, listen to me. He got her back onto the edge of the bed, and he crouched so they were level, and he took hold of both her hands, the good one and the bad one. Right now there are 14 news vans downstairs, and every one of them is running a story that says I took you. If you walk out of this building with me, that story stops being a story and becomes a fact. You in my truck, again, on camera. Her jaw set. So I'm a hostage in a bed. You're a witness in a bed, he said. That's not nothing. That is the single most dangerous thing in this county right now, and everybody knows it, and that is exactly why you're going to stay in it. And what do? You call your lawyer, not your company's lawyer, yours. Somebody with your last name on the retainer and nobody else's. He stood. And you get your mother back up here. Claire's face changed. Ethan? She has to read it. She's 68 years old. She's the widow of the man who signed it, Ethan said. If she hears it from a reporter, she'll never forgive you. If she hears it from you, she might. Claire sat there with her hand over her mouth. I don't know how to say it out loud, she said. You said it to me. You're a stranger. Yeah, Ethan said and got his coat. Funny how that works. At 10:31, he came out the loading dock door, and Dana Kessler was leaning on the wall next to it with her arms crossed like she'd been standing there an hour. You're leaving. I'm leaving. Where? Dana. Carter. She stepped in front of him. I have been on the phone since 8:15 with a contracts department that suddenly cannot find a document I signed 9 years ago. Somebody is walking my paperwork backward. So when I ask you where you're going, understand that I am not asking as his employee. Ethan looked at her for 3 long seconds. Ray Doyle, he said. Kessler's head came up. You know the name. I know the invoice, she said. R. Doyle, consulting retainer, $9,000 a month against a cost center that reports to the executive office and has never once been broken out in a board package. She pulled a phone out of her coat and held it up. I found it at 9:40. I have been standing here since 9:50 trying to decide whether to show it to you. Show me. Not yet. She put it away. Where's he want to meet? Alone. He was specific. They always are. Dana, 2 miles back, she said. I'll sit 2 miles back with a radio, and I will not come in unless you say the word. Give me a word. Ethan almost smiled. Pepper, he said. What? It's a rabbit. It's a, Kessler said, and then decided not to. Fine, Pepper, go. He got to the junction at 10:58, and Ray Doyle was sitting in a booth at the back with his hands wrapped around a coffee cup. He wasn't drinking, and he was smaller than his voice. 60-something gray in a canvas coat with a company patch that had been picked off and left a shadow. Ethan sat down across from him. The music box was on the table between them. Neither of them touched it. You look like your picture, Doyle said. What picture? They gave us a picture, 10 years ago, when the whole thing came apart. They sat about 40 of us in a break room and put your face up on a screen and said, this is the man responsible. We have all been misled. We are all victims here. Doyle turned the cup a quarter turn. There was a woman crying in the second row. Payroll. Never met you in her life. And you sat there. I sat there. You knew. I knew, Doyle said. Ethan put both hands flat on the table because he did not trust them anywhere else. Say what you knew. I knew that on the 14th of April, I called in a cold weather deformation on Housing 7, and I knew it went in as a service note, and I knew that 8 days later, a man came out from corporate and told me my service note had been reclassified as an installation error. Doyle's voice was very steady, the way a voice gets when it has said a thing 10,000 times inside somebody's skull and never once out loud. Mine. My error. And he said it wasn't going in my file. He said it was going nowhere. He said the company took care of its people, and would I be interested in some consulting work? $9,000 a month, Ethan said. Doyle's eyes came up fast. How do you know that? Because somebody's been reading the same paperwork you have. Doyle sat back. $1,080,000, he said. That's what it comes to. I did the math one night about 4 years ago, sitting at my kitchen table with a calculator, and I got to the number, and then I went out in the yard, and I was sick. He wiped his mouth. My wife thinks it's a pension. 26 years she thinks it's a pension. I let her think it. Ray? 2 of them were kids. I know. 9 and 11. Ray, I know. You don't, Doyle said. Because you filed the report. Whatever they did to you after you filed the report. You went in that room on the 22nd of March, and you told him, and I have read the transcript of that meeting 11 times, because he keeps it, Mr. Carter. That's the thing about him, he keeps everything. His hands were shaking now. You said if these fail cold, somebody's going to be hanging in a harness over a canyon. That's a quote. That's what you said. And he said, "Put it in the Q3 folder." Ethan sat very still. "You've seen the file." "I've seen 40 of them." "How?" "Because for 10 years, my consulting work," Doyle said, "has been driving a van." The waitress came. Doyle waved her off without looking. "What van, Ray?" "Records van, 4-5 times a year. Warehouse in Cheyenne to a storage facility outside Longmont and back. Boxes and drives. Chain of custody sheets. I sign for them." He almost laughed. "That's the joke. That's the whole joke of my life. They pay me $1 million to keep my mouth shut, and then they make me the courier, because who's going to look at Ray Doyle? Nobody's looked at Ray Doyle since 1994. "Last night," Ethan said. "Tell me about last night." Doyle's face closed. "Ray, Wednesday I got a call, not the usual number." He said it slowly. "Man says the company's got a missing person high priority, and they need locals who know the roads. Says I'll be driving. Says there's a passenger." "Who?" "Called himself Mercer. That his name?" "I doubt it," Doyle said. "He had a bag he didn't put down, and he never once told me where we were going until we were already turning. And at 10:40 last night, he told me to kill the headlights on a county road in a snowstorm, and I said no, and he said do it, and I did it, and that is on me, and it will be on me until I'm in the ground." "And when you saw her?" "I saw a coat," Doyle said. "That's all it was at first, a coat in a ditch. And I got off the accelerator and I said there's a person, and I started to bring it left." "And?" Ray Doyle looked at the table. "He put his hand on the wheel," he said. "Right hand, over mine, and he brought it back." Ethan heard his own blood. "He said what?" "He said keep it straight. And you." "And I hit the brake with both feet," Doyle said, "and I was still doing 11 miles an hour when you came up the middle of that road with a piece of guardrail. And Mr. Carter, I have never in my life been so glad to have a windshield come in on me." He finally looked up. "He was reaching into that bag when you swung. I want you to know that too." The tin roof ticked. A truck went by out on 6. "Where is he now?" Ethan said. "I don't know." "Ray, I don't know. I dropped him at 4 this morning at a motel in Fairview, and he told me to be available, and I have not been available. I've been sitting in a parking lot outside a feed store watching your truck for 2 hours, trying to decide whether I was going to do this." "Why did you?" And Ray Doyle said, "Because you left a music box in a truck." Ethan didn't understand. "I broke your window," Doyle said. "I'm not proud of it. I went through the cab and there's a dog food bag on the floor, and under it there's this." He touched the lid with one finger and took his hand back. "And there's a strip of masking tape on the bottom with a kid's handwriting on it. Says Lily's, do not fix again. It sounds better broken." Ethan looked away. "And I sat there," Doyle said, "and I thought about how I've got a granddaughter who's 7, and I thought that man has a little girl, and he's already lost everything once, and the last thing he's got left in the world is in a box with a chipped ballerina on it, and I am the guy they sent to take it." He pushed it across the table. "So no," he said. "Not today." At 11:12, Ethan called a number from the parking lot, and Dana Kessler picked up before the first ring finished. "Pepper. No, come in." "On my way." "Dana, bring somebody with a badge who isn't scared of a phone call from Denver." "There's exactly one of those in this county." "Then bring Tom." They took Ray Doyle's statement in a truck stop booth for 50 minutes, and Tom Reyes wrote it out longhand because he didn't trust anything else. And when Doyle got to the part about the hand on the wheel, Tom stopped writing and looked at Kessler. "That's attempted murder in this state. That's attempted murder in every state," Kessler said. "Mr. Doyle, you understand you're describing yourself as the driver." "Yes, sir." "You understand what that means for you?" "I've understood it since about 11 o'clock last night, sir," Doyle said. "I just wasn't done being a coward yet." Tom Reyes rubbed his face with both hands. 22 years I've had this job," he said, "and I have never once had a day like this." "Tom." Ethan leaned in. "There's a man named Mercer at a motel in this town, and there is a woman in a bed at Mercy General with a deputy on the door who is going to shift change at noon." Tom Reyes went white and was out of the booth before the sentence finished. At 11:40 on the shoulder of Route 6, Ethan called Bell Creek. Dad? Hey, Bug. You have to say the word. Percussive maintenance, Ethan said. Lily made a delighted sound. That's 4 words. That's a bonus. How's the pancakes? Aunt Deb makes them wrong, but I'm being polite. A pause, and then her voice went smaller and 8 years old again. Dad, there was a thing on TV. Ethan's stomach dropped straight through the floor of the truck. You saw it. Aunt Deb turned it off really fast, but I saw our house. A wobble. Why is our house on TV? Lily. They said your name. Yeah. They said a bad thing about you. Ethan pressed the heel of his hand against his eyes. They did, he said. Is it true? No. Then why are they saying it? And Ethan Carter, sitting on the shoulder of a state highway with a music box on the passenger seat, gave the only answer he had. Because it's easier than saying the true one, he said. Bug, listen to me. A long time ago before you were born. Some people said a bad thing about me, and it went on TV then too, and I let it stand. I didn't fight it. I came up the mountain and I fixed trucks, and I let people think whatever they wanted. Why? Because I was tired and I was sad and your mom was sick, and I only had so much of me. Lily was quiet. And this time, she said. This time, Ethan said, I'm going to stand in a room and say it out loud. At 12:04, broadcast ran a photograph of Ethan Carter's cabin under the words, Recluse Grudge, and 9 hours. And a lawyer who had never met explained to 4 million people what unlawful restraint carried in this state. And by 12:20, a national desk had picked it up. And by 12:40, there was a van at the bottom of Ruth Nolan's driveway, asking her what kind of man he was. Ruth Nolan, 72 years old in a barn coat, said, He carried my husband out of that house when he died. Now get off my road. They didn't run it. At 1:15, Eleanor Whitmore read 4 pages in a hospital room and did not make a sound. Ethan stood by the window. Claire sat on the edge of the bed with both hands in her lap. Eleanor turned the last page. She looked at the handwriting in the margin for a long time. That's his, she said. Mom, that's his hand. That's how he made his H. She set the pages down on the blanket very carefully and smoothed them flat, the way you'd straighten a tablecloth. 51 years I knew that man. Mom, I'm so sorry. Don't. Eleanor's voice came out level and terrible. Don't do that. Don't apologize to me for showing me a true thing. Claire started to cry. Claire Elizabeth, look at me. Eleanor took her daughter's face in both hands. Your father was a good man who did a bad thing on a Tuesday, and then had to be a good man for 11 more years while he knew it. And it killed him. I watched it kill him, and I thought it was the cancer. She let go. There was a night in 2019. He got up at 3 in the morning and I found him in the kitchen with a whiskey, and he said, if I could go back to 1 week. 1 week. And I asked him which one, and he said, never mind, and I have wondered about that for 7 years. Mom. Now I know which week. Eleanor stood. Mr. Carter. Ethan turned. I owe you some, and I don't have the first idea how to say it. Ma'am, you don't. Don't tell a woman what she owes. She picked up her handbag. There are 11 people on that board, and I have had every one of them to Thanksgiving. I built that room. I introduced my husband to 4 of them at parties in my own house. She put the strap over her shoulder. So I am going to go and make some telephone calls, and by 5 o'clock this evening, there is going to be a special session, and my daughter is going to walk into it. Mom, I can't stand up. Then sit down in it, Eleanor said, and left. At 2:40, Tom Reyes called and said the motel room in Fairview had been checked out of at 11:50 under the name Mercer paid in cash, and the plate on the security camera came back to a rental agency in Denver, and the rental agency had a corporate account number on file. Whose account? Ethan said. That's the thing, Tom said. It's the company's. But it's not the company's security department. Then what is it? It's the executive office, Tom said. Line item 1147. Ethan sat down on the tailgate. Say that number again. 1147. Tom, that's the incident number. I know it is. He named the account after the file. Ethan. Tom Reyes said, I have arrested men for 22 years, and I have never met one arrogant enough to do that. At 4:51 that evening, in a conference room on the 11th floor of a building in Denver. 11 directors of Whitmore Aldridge sat down around a table, and one of them had flown in from Chicago on 90 minutes' notice, and every single one of them had already seen the noon broadcast. Claire Whitmore came in first in a wheelchair in a sling with 11 stitches under her hairline that she had refused to let anybody cover. Ethan Carter came in behind her in a canvas coat and work boots, and Victor Hale was already standing at the head of the table. Well, Victor said, here we are. Sit down, Victor, Claire said. Claire. Sit down. He didn't. He turned to the room instead because that was what he had done for 31 years, and it had never once failed him. Before anyone says anything, Victor said, I want to put a document in front of this board, and I want it understood that I do so with a heavy heart. Ethan's stomach went cold. Victor opened a folder. At 3:15 this afternoon, he said, I authorized outside counsel to disclose to the Securities and Exchange Commission and to the Department of Justice and to the Denver Post an internal record dated the 22nd of March 10 years ago, bearing the signature of our founder, Harold Whitmore. The room made a sound. He did what somebody said. I have carried this alone for a decade, Victor said, and his voice was beautiful. It was genuinely beautiful, warm and heavy and full of grief. I protected a family. I protected this company. And I was wrong too, and I am done. Harold deferred the tooling change. Harold read the engineer's report, and 4 people died. He closed the folder. I will of course be resigning at the conclusion of the investigation I have asked counsel to open this afternoon. And Ethan Carter understood with a kind of awe that he had just watched a man light his own house on fire to keep from being arrested in it. He got out in front of it, Claire whispered. He got out in front of it, Ethan said. He's going to be the man who came clean. He's going to be on television by 9. Victor spread his hands. Claire, sweetheart, I know what this costs you. I have known you since you were 11. Yes, Claire said. You keep saying that. I did what your father could not. And Claire Whitmore reached over with her one good hand and put a phone on the table and pressed a button. Victor's own voice came out of it, gentle and unhurried, filling an 11-person conference room. Your father's handwriting, on a document, beside the names of 4 dead people, 2 of them children. Read aloud in a room by a lawyer, and then read aloud again by every anchor in this country for 6 weeks. There's a sailing scholarship with his name on it. There's a wing of a hospital. Your mother is downstairs in a cafeteria right now. Nobody in that room breathed. Claire stopped it. That was 9:06 this morning, she said. 6 hours before he decided to come clean. That is not a man carrying a burden. That is a man showing me a gun. That is a private conversation. It's a one-party state, Victor. You recorded me. He did, Claire said, and nodded at Ethan. Victor turned. And for the first time in 10 years, and for the last time in his life, Victor Hale looked at Ethan Carter with nothing behind his face at all. Mr. Carter, he said, is a man with a public grudge who held a woman in a cabin for 9 hours. Then let's talk about the cabin, Ethan said. He put a folded piece of paper on the table. That's a sworn statement taken at 11:50 this morning by the sheriff of Grant County from a man named Raymond Doyle, 26 years at Aldridge Systems, currently retained by this company at $9,000 a month against Cost Center 1147, which reports to the office of the president and has never appeared in a board package. Somebody down the table said, What Cost Center? At 10:40 last night, Ethan said, Mr. Doyle was driving a rental vehicle on a county road with its headlights off. There was a passenger in that vehicle who called himself Mercer. When Mr. Doyle saw a woman lying in a ditch and began to steer away from her, that passenger put his hand over Mr. Doyle's on the wheel and told him to keep it straight. The room came apart. That is a fabrication. The rental was booked on a corporate account, Ethan said, and the account is the same Cost Center, and I want everybody in this room to hear the number one more time because I've been living inside it for 10 years. 1147. That's the incident number from Sentinel-9. He looked at Victor. You named the account after us. That proves nothing. It proves you thought about it every single day, Ethan said. Same as me. And that was the moment Dana Kessler opened the conference room door. She came in with a laptop under her arm and 31 years on her face, and she did not look at Victor Hale one time. Madam Chair, she said to Eleanor Whitmore, who was not the chair and did not correct her. Dana Kessler Protective Services. On Wednesday at 4:40 in the afternoon, a second detail was authorized against Cost Center 1147, outside my chain, by a verbal instruction I have now traced to a single extension. She set the laptop down. I have the authorization log, the vehicle assignments, and 9 phone records, and I would like to state for the minutes that at no point in 91 hours did the president of this company ask me a single question about whether Claire Whitmore was alive. Silence. He asked about the unit, Kessler said, 9 times. Victor Hale did not say anything. He looked around the table at 11 people he had been to weddings with, and Ethan watched him do the arithmetic, and Ethan watched the arithmetic come out wrong. I built this company, Victor said. You managed it, Eleanor Whitmore said. There's a difference. My husband told me that once, and I didn't know until today that he was talking about you. The vote took 4 minutes. It was 11-0. At 6:40 that evening, in a hallway with the room emptying behind them, Claire Whitmore reached up from the wheelchair and got hold of Ethan Carter's sleeve. Say it, she said. Say what? You've been holding something since 3 o'clock. I can see it. Say it. Ethan crouched down beside the chair. Mercer's still out there, he said. 6:41 in the evening, and Claire Whitmore did not let go of his sleeve. Where is he? Nobody knows. Ethan. He checked out of the motel at 11:50 this morning under a name that isn't his paid cash and got into a rental booked on an account that stopped existing about 9 minutes ago when 11 people raised their hands. Ethan stood up. Which means as of right now, he's a man with no employer, no cover, and a very specific thing he was hired to do that he hasn't done. So he goes home. Maybe. Ethan, it's over. The board voted. Dana has the logs. Victor's going to be indicted. Claire. He crouched again so she'd have to look at him. Victor Hale is going to be indicted. Ray Doyle's going to be indicted. There's a lawyer in this building right now with 14 hours of billable panic ahead of him. And every single one of those people has exactly one thing they can trade. He waited. The man who reached for a bag on a county road last night is the only person in this whole story who hasn't been named out loud yet. Claire's face changed. He's the only loose one. He's the only loose one. Then he's not running, she said slowly. He's cleaning. That's what I've been sitting on since 3 o'clock. At 6:52 in the parking garage on level 2, Dana Kessler was already on the phone when they came out of the elevator, and she hung up without saying goodbye. Bell Creek, she said. Ethan went cold. What? Your sister-in-law's. Deb's not my sister-in-law. She's Ruth's. Carter. Kessler put a hand flat on his chest. Listen to the words in the order I say them. Nothing has happened. Nothing is happening. I put 2 of my own people outside that house at 11:15 this morning without telling anybody, including you. And about 40 minutes ago, a vehicle came down that road, slowed, and did not stop, and my guy got a partial. Ethan couldn't get any air in. You put people on my daughter. I put people on an 8-year-old whose father's face has been on a television since noon, yes. Without telling me. Because you'd have driven straight there at 90 miles an hour and led him right to the door, Kessler said. You're welcome. Be angry later. Ethan turned away and put both hands on the roof of a car that wasn't his and stood there for about 4 seconds. Dana. Yeah. Get me to Bell Creek. That's the exact opposite of what happens next. Dana. Carter, look at me. She grabbed his coat and turned him. He isn't there for her. He came down that road, he saw 2 men in a car, and he kept going. He's not stupid. He's a professional whose principal got voted out of a building an hour ago and whose paper trail is currently being read into the minutes. She let go. He doesn't want your kid. He wants the only piece of physical evidence in this that still has his fingerprints anywhere near it. The module. The module, Claire said from the chair. But we already gave it to the board. No, Ethan said. We gave the board a statement, a cost center, and a phone recording. The module's been in my coat since 11:20 this morning. Kessler closed her eyes. It has been in your coat. Where else was it going to be? In a bank, Carter. In a bank in a box with a signature card. Banks close at 5, Ethan said. At 7-Eleven in a stairwell. Ethan Carter made a phone call that took him 9 years to make. Grant County Sheriff. Tom? Ethan. I've got a district attorney on the other line who has said the word jurisdiction 40 times. Tom, I need a favor, and it's a big one, and you're going to hate it. That's every sentence you've said today. I want to give him what he wants. Silence. Say that slower. Mercer's not going to sit in a motel in Nebraska and wait to be arrested. He's going to come get the drive tonight because tomorrow it's in a federal building. Ethan leaned his head back against the wall. So I'm going to be somewhere obvious with it, and you're going to be there first. Absolutely not. Tom. Absolutely not. Ethan, I have known you 20 years, and I have watched you run at every single thing that's ever come down that mountain, and it has cost you a career, a house, and about half your life, and today one time you're going to let somebody else do the job. Where's the cabin, Tom? What? My cabin, right now. Who's at it? Tom Reyes was quiet. Nobody, he said. Nobody, Ethan repeated. Empty house, no dog, no lights, a driveway 400 yards off the county road, and a man who has been told for 4 days that the thing he's chasing lives in it. Ethan. He's already there, Ethan said. Or he will be by 9. That's not a plan. Tom, that's a fact, and the only question left is whether there's a sheriff sitting in it when he walks in the door, or whether there isn't. The line hissed. I hate you, Tom Reyes said. I know. I'll have 4 cars up there by 8:30, and I am telling you right now, you don't come up that road. Tom? Say it back to me. I don't come up that road. At 7:40, Claire Whitmore called her daughter. That's not right. Claire Whitmore called Ethan Carter's daughter, which was somehow harder, and she made Ethan dial it, and then took the phone out of his hand. Hello. Lily, this is Claire. A long, delighted pause. The lady from the chair. That's me. Do you still have Pepper? Claire looked at her lap, where a stuffed rabbit that had been through 2 washing machines and 1 house move was sitting, because a hospital nurse had put it there at noon, and nobody had the heart to move it. I do, Claire said. She's been with me all day. She's been very brave. Was she scared? Terribly. What did you do? I held on to her, Claire said, and her voice went and she had to stop. That's what you're supposed to do, Lily said seriously. Yes, Claire said. I'm learning. Is my dad okay? And Claire Whitmore, who had run a company with 9,000 employees and had lied on a mountain road about her own name, said, Your dad is the toughest man I've ever met, and he is also the worst liar, so I'm going to tell you the truth. It's been a very hard day, and it isn't over. Okay. But there are 4 police cars going to your house on the mountain tonight, and your dad is going to be nowhere near them because I am personally going to sit on him. Lily laughed. You can't, she said. You're in a wheelchair. Then I'll roll over his foot. At 8:19, Ethan Carter broke his word to a sheriff. I didn't mean to. That's what he told himself in the truck going up the switchbacks in the dark for the 2nd time in 24 hours, and it wasn't true, and he knew it wasn't true. And he kept driving. Because at 8:04, Ruth Nolan had called. Ethan, there's a light in your house. Ruth. Don't Ruth me. I'm looking at it out my kitchen window. There's a light moving in your daughter's bedroom. Where are you? In my kitchen looking at it. Get out of the... I'm 72 years old, and I've buried a husband, and I'll stand at my own window in my own house until the good Lord tells me otherwise, Ruth said. The sheriff's cars aren't up here yet. I'd have heard them come through the notch. Ethan looked at the clock on his dash. 8:05. 25 minutes. A man with a flashlight in Lily's room for 25 minutes. He called Tom. It went to voicemail. He called Kessler. "He's in the house," he said. "Where are you?" "9 miles out." "Carter, do not." "He's in her room, Dana." "She's in Bell Creek eating pancakes." "He's in her room," Ethan said, and hung up and put his foot down on a road with 8 inches of new snow on it. He came up the drive dark at 8:31. There was a car nosed into the trees on the second bend. A gray sedan with a rental barcode still in the window, and Ethan went past it with his lights off and his window down, and the cold coming in like a hand on his face. He stopped 100 yards short and walked. The front door was standing open 4 inches, and Ethan Carter, 38 years old, who fixed ambulances for a county that paid him late, stood on his own porch in the dark and thought about the exact shape of what he was doing. Then he pushed the door. "I'm not armed," he said, "and I've got it on me." The light in the back room went off. Nothing happened for about 6 seconds. "Mr. Carter?" "That's right. Come in and stand where I can see you." He came in and stood in the middle of his own kitchen with his hands out from his sides. The man came out of the hallway. He wasn't big. That was the thing that stayed with Ethan afterward. He was maybe 50 in a dark jacket medium. Everything the kind of man you'd stand behind in a hardware store and never think about again. And he had a flashlight down at his hip, and his other hand was empty and open, and that somehow made it worse. "Mercer, that'll do. There's a sheriff's convoy about 11 minutes out." "9, Mercer said. "I've been listening to them since Fairview. You have a scanner in your shop. It's on." "Then you know how this goes." "I know how it goes for me." He tilted his head slightly. "I don't know how it goes for you. You're the variable. You've been the variable since 11 o'clock last night, and I have thought about you all day, and I want to tell you something, Mr. Carter, and then I want the drive. Go ahead." "I've done this work for 19 years, Mercer said. "Locate, retrieve, deliver. 400 jobs maybe. Nobody's ever put a guardrail through a windshield I was sitting behind. Nobody ever tried to run somebody over in front of me. That's not what happened. I watched it." "You watched a vehicle continue in a straight line," Mercer said. "There's a difference, and it's the difference between a life sentence and a phone call, and I have been very careful about that difference for 19 years. Ethan's hands were still out at his sides. "You put your hand on the wheel." An old man panicked in the snow. "He's given a statement." "He's given a statement about a hand," Mercer said, "and there's no camera, and no print, and no third person in that car. And when this is done, he's a bribed employee with $1 million in his checking account, and I'm a contractor who did some driving." He lifted the flashlight slightly. "That's why I'm still standing here talking to you instead of gone. Because the file in your pocket is the only thing in this entire mess with my name in it." Ethan went very still. "Your name's on it. An authorization went out on Wednesday at 4:40, and it went out with an attachment," Mercer said. "And the attachment is a scope of work, and the scope of work is on that drive, because that idiot kept everything, and I would like it now." And Ethan Carter, standing in his kitchen with a man he could not possibly beat, started to laugh. "You didn't know," he said. "Excuse me. You didn't know until this afternoon." Ethan shook his head slowly. "You've been chasing a woman for 4 days, and you thought you were chasing her file. You didn't know your own paperwork was in there until somebody called you at 3 o'clock and told you the board was reading the cost center out loud." Mercer didn't answer. "That's why you came here," Ethan said. "Not for them, for you." "The drive, Mr. Carter." "It's in my left coat pocket." "Take it out with 2 fingers." Ethan took it out with 2 fingers and held it up a black storage module the size of 2 sticks of gum taped at one end where it had ridden inside a music box. Set it on the table. "No. Mr. Carter, you want to know the actual reason you're going to lose tonight," Ethan said. "It's not the sheriff. It's that you got here at 7 and it's 8:30 and you're still in my house." Meaning you already searched it, and you found it empty, and you had 40 minutes to leave, and you didn't, because at some point you went into the back room and you saw a bed with a rabbit missing off it, and you thought about it. Ethan lowered his hand. "You've got kids." Mercer's face did nothing at all. "Don't," he said. 19 years and 400 jobs, and you've never once had to be the man who took something out of a little girl's room and last night you had a hand on a wheel and a woman in a ditch, and you're still thinking about it. Put it on the table. You want to hear the worst part? Ethan said. I'm going to give it to you. And he tossed it. Underhand, gentle, right across the kitchen, and Mercer caught it out of the air on instinct, and the second his fingers closed on it, Ethan said, 8:34 in the evening. Grant County, my house, my kitchen. You've got it in your hand. Mercer looked down, then at the shelf over the stove where a phone was propped against a coffee can with its screen lit and a timer running on it. You son of a... That's a live call, Ethan said. It's been open since I came up the drive. There's a sheriff on one end and a woman named Dana Kessler on the other, and she's got 31 years and a corporate authorization log, and she has been waiting all day to hear a voice she can match. Headlights came up the drive. 4 sets. Mercer stood there with the drive in his hand and his jaw working. You gave it to me, he said. Yeah. You gave me the only piece of evidence. I gave you a copy, Ethan said. The original's been in a sheriff's evidence locker in Fairview since 11:40 this morning, because a man named Ray Doyle drove it there himself and signed for it, which is the first thing he's signed in 10 years that he's proud of. Then what's this? That, Ethan said, is $30 of consumer electronics with one file on it. What file? A photograph of a music box, Ethan said, with a piece of masking tape on the bottom, and the door came in behind him with 4 county deputies and a very angry sheriff, and Mercer did not run, and did not fight, and did not say another word, and at 8:39 in the evening he went face down on Ethan Carter's kitchen floor with the stolen storage device still closed in his fist and his fingerprints all over it. Tom Reyes got Ethan by the collar out on the porch. You promised me. I know. You looked me in the phone and you said the words. I know, Tom. There was a man in your house. Yeah, Ethan said. In her room. And Tom Reyes let go of his and stood there breathing, and then put his hand on the back of Ethan's neck, the way men of that generation do when they can't say anything. Go get your kid, he said. At 11:20 that night in a kitchen in Bell Creek, Lily Carter woke up on a couch, saw her father in the doorway, and crossed the room without her feet touching more than twice. He got about 4 words out before he stopped being able to. It's over, Bug. Is it? It's over. Say the word. Percussive maintenance, Ethan said into her hair, and she laughed, and Ruth Nolan turned around at the sink and pretended very hard to be washing something. The next 11 weeks were not a story. They were paperwork. That's what nobody tells you. Ethan gave 4 separate depositions and sat for 11 hours with 2 federal attorneys who wanted the March 19th report walked through line by line, and on the 3rd day, one of them, a woman about his age, stopped in the middle of it and said, Mr. Carter, can I ask you something off the record? Sure. You filed this and nobody listened. Why did you never take it to a newspaper? Because in August they showed me a file with my name on it, Ethan said, and there was no report in it, and I sat there and I thought I was losing my mind. And by the time I was sure I wasn't, my wife had a diagnosis, and I had a 4-year-old, and there's only so much of a man. The attorney wrote nothing down. For what it's worth, she said. I've read a lot of these. Yours is the clearest engineering document I've ever seen in my career, and it should have ended a product line, and it ended you instead. Yeah. That's obscene. It happens a lot, Ethan said. Not to me it doesn't, she said, and went back on the record. Victor Hale was indicted on the 4th of March on 9 counts, and the one that broke him wasn't the securities count, and it wasn't the obstruction. It was the authorization on Wednesday at 4:40 with an attachment and a man named Mercer, whose real name turned out to be Alan Prieto, who took a deal in 11 days because 19 years of careful had left him with absolutely nobody who owed him anything. Ray Doyle pled to 2 counts and got 18 months and testified for 6 hours, and on the second morning of it, on a stand in front of a room, he said, I want to say a name, Ethan Carter. He was right on the 19th of March, and I let a company say he wasn't, and I have been eating that every day for 10 years, and I'd like it in the record. His wife left him in April. She came back in September. Ethan didn't ask, and never learned why, and always suspected it had something to do with the fact that the man who came home from those 18 months was somebody she'd been married to a long time ago. Dana Kessler did not stay with the company. She turned in her badge and her laptop on a Tuesday and told Claire Whitmore, "I'm too old to work somewhere I've already had to save," and then took a job 3 weeks later running compliance for a hospital system in Colorado Springs, where nobody had ever heard of her, and she liked it that way. She sent Lily a birthday card in June, just the one. It said, "You were right about the rabbit. The company did not die." That surprised everybody, including Claire, who spent February assuming it would. There were 14,000 people, and 9 plants, and a name on a hospital wing, and 11 directors, who had all raised their hands, and by March there was also a settlement fund with 4 families' names attached to it, and Claire Whitmore signed her father's estate into it personally, which is not a thing a lawyer will ever advise you to do. "You didn't have to," Ethan told her. "Yes, I did. Claire, he sailed a boat he bought with that company," she said. "I went to school on it. I don't get to keep the good half." Eleanor Whitmore was in the room for that conversation and did not say one word, and afterward in the hall, she took hold of Ethan's arm. "She's her father's daughter," Eleanor said. "Yes, ma'am." "I've been afraid of that for 3 months. Ma'am, he made one bad call on a Tuesday, and then he was decent for 11 years about a thing he could never fix." Ethan looked down at her. "Your daughter got the 11 years. Eleanor Whitmore did not cry. She had been raised not to, but she held on to his arm a good while longer than she needed to for balance. The record came in April. An administrative board in Cheyenne vacated a finding from 10 years earlier and reinstated a professional license and issued a 2-paragraph statement that no television station covered and mailed it to a post office box in a mountain town. Ethan read it in the truck in the parking lot with the engine running. Then he read it again. Then he drove home and put it in a drawer, and later that week Lily found it and asked what it was, and he said, "It's a piece of paper that says I was right," and she said, "I already knew that," and went back to her cereal, and that was by an enormous margin the best moment Ethan Carter had had in 10 years. 3 firms called him in May. One of them offered him more money than he'd ever made in his life to sit in an office in Denver and sign off on other people's designs. He thought about it for 2 days, which was longer than anybody expected, including him. Then he called Claire. "I'm going to say no." "I know." "You know, Ethan, you turned down a $900,000 settlement offer from my own board in February because you said you didn't want anybody able to say you got paid," Claire said. "Nobody has ever been less confusing than you. So then what do I do?" And Claire Whitmore said, "You told a federal attorney in January that the problem isn't that people don't see it. It's that the people who see it are always the ones with the least to lose and the most to lose it with. So build the thing that fixes that." He built it out of a shop with a wood stove in it. The Carter line started as a phone number on a card that got passed hand to hand in 3 states, because Ethan Carter would not put a logo on anything. If you were a technician or a line inspector, or a 24-year-old with a torque wrench and a bad feeling, you called it, and a man answered, and he asked you what you saw, and how many times you'd seen it, and who you'd already told. And then he told you exactly what to write down, and where to send a copy, so it existed somewhere nobody could say it didn't. That was the whole thing. That was the entire invention. Ethan Carter's life's work was making sure that a piece of paper couldn't disappear twice. By the following winter, it had a lawyer on retainer, 2 part-time staff, and 411 calls in the log. 9 of them had shut down a production line somewhere. One of them in Ohio was a die that had been paid for and never built. He never took a salary from it. He still fixed ambulances. "That's insane," Claire told him in October. "Rescue rigs pay in November." "Ethan, there's somebody in the back of it," he said, and she stopped arguing because she had learned by then that this was the one sentence he had no counter for and needed none. She came up the mountain the first time in June, alone driving a rental she'd picked up herself and got lost twice. Lily met her at the gate. "You came in a car." "I did." "I thought you'd come in a helicopter." "I've retired from helicopters," Claire said. She came up in August and in September and twice in October. By November, there was a mug in the cabin that was understood to be hers. And by January, she knew where the fuse box was. And in February, she spent 4 days there with a laptop and a bad connection, running a 14,000-person company from a kitchen table while an 8-year-old did long division across from her. It was never fast. Neither of them was built fast. But there was a night in March, 2 years and some months from a ditch below the notch, when Lily was asleep and the stove was going, and Claire said out of nothing, "Can I ask you something that's going to make you uncomfortable?" "Probably." "When you found me, before you knew anything, before the file, before Victor, before any of it." She turned her mug around. "Why did you stop?" Ethan thought about it a long time. "I almost didn't," he said. "That's not an answer. It's the honest one." He looked at the stove. "I got 40 feet past you. I told myself out loud it was a deer. And I've thought about those 40 feet more than I've thought about almost anything else in my life, because the man I'd been for 6 years would have kept going, and I know that, and I don't like knowing it." "But you stopped." "I stopped." "Why?" "Because my kid asked me that morning if angels get cold," Ethan said. Claire put her hand over her mouth. "And I said no," he said. "And then 11 hours later, there was somebody face down in the snow, and I heard myself say, 'It's a deer,' and I thought, if I say that out loud one more time, I'm going to be a man who says that." Neither of them said anything for a while. "I've built my whole life out of that decision," Claire said finally. "So have I," Ethan said. She came up on a Saturday in June with coffee in 2 paper cups and a hiking pack on her good shoulder, and she stood in the yard while Lily explained a complicated situation involving a neighbor's dog. And when Ethan came out wiping his hands on a rag, she handed him a cup without asking how he took it, because she'd known that for a year. "You've got a pack," he said. "I've got a pack. You planning something?" "The trail out past the notch," Claire said. "The one that comes out above where I went off." Ethan stopped. "Claire, I've been looking at that mountain for 2 years from the wrong side of it," she said. "I'd like to walk up it on purpose." "That's about 4 hours." "I've got all day." He looked at her for a moment. "You know," he said, "the first time you came here you wouldn't even tell me your name." "The first time I came here," Claire said, "I was running from everyone. And now—" And Claire Whitmore looked up the road past the gate, past the trees, at a mountain that had nearly killed her, and had instead handed her the only true thing she'd ever been given. "Now I know exactly where I belong," she said. Lily got her boots. Ruth Nolan, watching from her kitchen window a 1/4 mile down the road, saw 3 people go up the trail together and said something out loud to a husband who had been gone 11 years. And Ethan Carter walked up his own mountain in the sun, with his daughter on one side and Claire on the other. A man whose name had been taken from him, and who had gone and taken it back, and he did not once look behind him. Because a man is not what a company says he is, and he is not what a television says he is. He is what he does at 40 feet past the